Hello and welcome to the interview on France 24. Well, my guest today, Garry Kasparov, is considered one of the greatest, perhaps the greatest chess player in history. Not just the youngest ever world chess champion at age 22, but he also held the title longer than anyone else, 20 straight years. Now, since retiring in 2005, Kasparov has turned his attention a little more to politics, and he's been taking on an opponent perhaps more fearsome than anyone he ever faced across the chessboard, Vladimir Putin. Kasparov actually tried to run for president himself in Russia a few years back, but he says that the Kremlin thwarted him in his bid to even register as a candidate. And now the ex-chess champ still says he has really one overarching goal, a goal that he shares with many opponents of Putin in Russia, and that is to restore democracy to a country where democracy has been, well, excuse the pun, in checkmate recently. Welcome to the interview, Mr. Kasparov. You know, you say your name, Garry Kasparov, to almost anyone, not just in Russia, outside Russia, world chess champion. Everyone remembers your matches with Karpov and all of that. Fewer people know about your role as a fierce critic of Vladimir Putin. In fact, most people don't even know anything about the Russian opposition. Why is that? Why do you guys just not know? We don't know about Kasparov the politician.
It's not a front-page story. So what happened to Anatoly Karpov or IBM supercomputer or other World Championship matches, like with Vishy Anand in 1995 in the World Trade Center, people follow the story that, you know, was almost everywhere. Fighting Putin in Russia means that you're blocked on mass media. So I was not on Russian television for a long, long time.
How long has it been? How many years?
The last time, okay, I started my political activities in 2005. There were few appearances, you know, in 2005, and I think one in 2006. So for more than 5 years, I was not seen on a mainstream Russian television. So that's why people, you know, unless they read internet, so they are not aware about what I'm doing. Now, I would say that in the West, in Western Europe, in Europe in general, in the United States, there is more information. So that's why people are not surprised. So, and actually, most of my interest today...
We hear more about you in the West than people in Russia would.
Yes, absolutely. So it reminds somehow the situation in the Soviet Union, where more people knew about Sakharov and Solzhenitsyn and about their fight, and rather than people in the Soviet Union who can actually read about them. So in a negative light.
So,
but today it is not even negative light. Just, you know, we don't
just
exist.
No light.
Exactly. Yes.
So you're marginalized. You're ostracized a bit in Russia. You were arrested during the last presidential campaign you tried to mount in 2007.
Yes, I spent 5 days in jail. But you know, I warn, you know, all the journalists, you know, to be very cautious in using words, you know, presidential campaign, election, political parties.
You try to register as a candidate.
Yeah, because people tend to believe that Russia, as France, as UK, as the United States, Russia has the election cycle, campaigns, political parties. You could have debate. No, I mean, Russia doesn't have any political life the way you have it here.
So it's very undefined. Let me ask you that. I mean, you read your biography in politics. First, you were head of an umbrella opposition group called The Other Russia. More recently, you formed a party called Solidarność.
It's not a party. It's more of a movement. There are no political parties in Russia registered outside of sort of Kremlin orbit. To register the party, you must get a license from Kremlin. Any party, whether it's left-wing, nationalist, liberal, registered. And there are only 7 in Russia now.
There are only 7?
Only 7 registered parties. Since 2004, when Putin introduced a new law on the parties, no single political party was registered in Russia. So there are more than 10 political parties now that are not registered, and they belong to all, you know, all parts of the ideological spectrum.
Well, but a narrow ideological spectrum. Let me just ask you this. One of the prominent party members who was registered, a man by the name of Mikhail Prokhorov, who was
but this party was already in existence.
It was called Just Cause, correct?
Yeah. And it's actually the Right Cause.
The Right Cause. Now, he was seen as perhaps mounting an opposition to either Putin or Medvedev, whoever runs. He resigned, yes. He resigned this week saying...
he was kicked out. No,
he said it was a farce and that he was a
multi-billionaire, somebody who got a lot of cash in 2008, just before the crisis, the richest man in Russia, one of the richest in the world. He was brought in, and you could see him, you know, meeting Medvedev, Putin, and he could be presented to the Russian public and to the West as somehow the leader of the liberal opposition in
But
Russia.
he didn't call himself opposition
No,
himself.
but from the very beginning, this so-called leader of the opposition, blamed sort of marginal elements of Russian politics. He said, we're not opposition, we're working closely with Putin's party. So he showed loyalty, but not 100% loyalty.
Right, this is
exactly.
so...
He was 90% loyal.
He was wedded to the Kremlin,
absolutely.
wedded to Putin, and even he was
yes,
too...
but he was too rich, to be 100% dependent on Kremlin. So he had his own money, and he wanted to have some kind of freedom inside of his actions. No, so he was kicked out. He was kicked out, and it was another demonstration, great demonstration, that politics in Russia today, it's more like, the politics inside a mafia group. 100% loyal to the boss. The moment you make one move, left or right, unauthorized, out of business.
Let's talk about moves. You're a man who knows a few things about
moves
here.
But my moves were made by the rules. When I played chess, I knew that no matter whether my position was good or bad, my opponent must win playing by the rules. In Russia, no rules.
But hold on. Let me ask you this, though. You still had to do something that most, no matter how good they are at chess, most players can't do. That is think dozens of moves in advance. What's he going to do if I do this, 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 and this?
Yes, but still,
why can't you do that with Putin?
But it's based on my understanding of the rules. Because we have a chess set, we have 64 squares, 32 pieces, and again, my opponent must follow these rules. He cannot make 10 moves without me responding.
So Putin's tougher than Karpov ever was.
No, again, Putin doesn't play by the rules. Putin can change the rules anytime. So that's why in Russia we're not fighting to win elections. In Russia, we're fighting to have elections. And that's a fundamentally different approach.
Some people would say there was a period, say you have to go back 20 years, right after communism collapsed, a very short period, some optimism in the air.
Correct.
Yeltsin came along, it was chaotic. Putin seized the moment by imposing order, and Russians love that.
No, I don't think so. It's not as simple. First of all, Putin didn't show up, out of the vacuum. It was a logical continuation, definitely of the Yeltsin's second term. Because what we saw in the Yeltsin's time, you were absolutely right. There was some kind of chaos, but there were many elements for a future stable democracies. But Russia never eliminated the monopolized structure of our economy. We still had powers, the government and business, too close to each other. We never secured private ownership of land and means of production.
And that's a fundamental problem.
That's a fundamental problem. We still had a monopoly in the economy, Gazprom and others, and eventually this monopoly was extended to politics. Putin consolidated the trend that was already growing under Yeltsin's rule.
Some say the corruption's worse than ever. You yourself...
corruption in Russia is not the problem, it's the system.
The system. But you yourself said during the last campaign, I think, back in 2007, we have to get out of this swamp of lies and corruption, that Russia's bogged down in it.
But the tragedy is that things are getting worse. Because the oil prices are too high and the amount of money stolen is phenomenal. And you don't have to listen to Garry Kasparov or the opposition leaders. You just look at what Medvedev said about a year ago. The amount of money stolen within the state official purchases is roughly $35 billion. That's what Medvedev says. We believe it's much more. But it's still, he confessed. $35 billion stolen from the state purchases process, and nothing happens.
And nothing happens. No one says anything.
No.
Recent survey came out showing that 1 in 5 Russians, and most of them very young Russians, given a chance, would leave Russia today. And a lot of people do have a chance to do that. That's very grim.
It's absolutely, and it's the worst brain drain since 1917.
Since the revolution.
Yes, since Bolsheviks taking over Russia. And it's not just 1 out of 5. We're talking about most talented, most dynamic, most intelligent people, because they don't see any chance. The social lifts, the opportunities in Russian society, they cease to exist. You have to belong to the core of nomenclatura, the ruling
party,
democracy.
the ruling party.
Absolutely. You have to be a member of the families. Who are the richest people in Russia? It's either the mayor's wife or governor's son or a nephew of the district attorney.
Or a few oligarchs, I might add.
Or the few oligarchs, correct.
Garry Kasparov, in the little time we have left, you still are playing chess. It's not just all about.
I'm promoting chess.
Well, tell us. I mean, you're not just here in Paris by coincidence. You're actually you're going to be playing.
Yeah, we're playing a little exhibition match with one of two leading French players, and I'm joining, the club of Clichy. And it's turning to be a member of French federations. I have long affiliation with my friends here in France, and it's a great federation. They're doing a very, very important job in promoting chess. And right now, I'm trying to extend the positive experience we had in the United States with Kasparov Chess Foundation, bringing chess into the schools. Recently, I formed Kasparov Chess Foundation Europe, and on Monday, we're doing a presentation for European Union in Brussels, and France could play a very important role in promoting this concept in France itself, and of course in French-speaking world. So I hope that this concept will spread around. I'm planning to open Kasparov Chess Federation South America in São Paulo in February, and also later that year, next year in Johannesburg.
And very briefly, given the success you've had in chess, have you ever just thought, give up the politics, forget the opposition politics? I'm going to stick to chess. This is what I know I can do very well.
It's what we're doing in Russia is not politics. We're fighting for decent life, and I believe that there's no big gap between my activities in chess when I'm trying to improve the quality of education and the fight in Russia when I'm trying to improve the quality of life of people of the country I was born and raised.
Garry Kasparov, you've been my guest today, trying to stay active in Russian politics at a very difficult time, as I understand, in Russia's history, and also here to promote chess, which is obviously your passion and your life's purpose so far. Thank you very much for being my guest today, and thanks to all of you watching. He stayed a few moves ahead of me throughout the interview, but I think it went pretty well.
Yeah, it was a draw.
A draw. Thanks.